There are moments when attraction doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers. It lingers in the space between two people who are not rushing anywhere, who are not trying to prove anything, who are simply aware of each other. A kiss, in its most irresistible form, is never about the lips alone. It is about timing. It is about emotional temperature. It is about whether the moment feels claimed rather than forced. People often ask how desire works, as if it were a switch you could flip, a trick you could master. But desire doesn't respond well to commands. It responds to permission. Desire does not grow where there is hurry, insistence, or the quiet anxiety of needing an outcome. It grows where attention is calm, grounded, and undemanding. Presence is not simply being physically close, it is emotional availability without agenda. It is the ability to be fully there without leaning forward to take something before the moment has opened on its own. Many people confuse intensity with desire, but desire often softens when it feels watched, evaluated, or pushed toward a conclusion. Pressure makes attraction defensive. Presence makes it curious. A woman senses presence not through words, but through the absence of urgency. When you are not trying to convince her, impress her, or accelerate intimacy, she feels space to feel her own emotions. That space is where desire begins to breathe. It's the feeling of being met rather than pursued, of being invited rather than directed. In that atmosphere, attraction becomes a shared experience instead of a performance. Presence shows itself in subtle ways. In how you listen without interrupting. In how your attention doesn't drift even during silence. In how your body remains relaxed rather than angled forward in anticipation. When you are comfortable with pauses, when you don't rush to fill gaps with words or touches, something powerful happens. The moment thickens. Anticipation builds quietly. She starts leaning in emotionally long before she does physically. Pressure, on the other hand, collapses this process. It turns intimacy into a transaction. When a kiss is expected at the end of an interaction, when there is an invisible countdown, her nervous system notices. Desire retreats because it no longer feels free. Even attraction needs consent, not only in action but in energy. Presence signals respect for her timing, her internal rhythm, her right to arrive at desire on her own terms. Being fully present also means being grounded in yourself. You are not borrowing confidence from her interest or validating yourself through her response. You are already at ease. That steadiness is attractive because it creates emotional safety. Within that safety, curiosity emerges. She begins to wonder what it would feel like to get closer, not because she's being pulled there, but because the space feels welcoming. A kiss that comes from presence carries a different weight. It doesn't feel like a conquest or a test. It feels like a continuation of something already unfolding. The power lies not in moving fast, but in moving attentively. Desire thrives when it feels it can unfold naturally, without being managed, measured, or rushed, and once presence replaces pressure, attraction stops resisting and begins opening on its own terms quietly, slowly. Undeniably, a kiss becomes meaningful not when it is imposed, but when it feels like an open door that both people choose to walk through. An invitation carries warmth, curiosity, and respect. It allows desire to arise rather than forcing it into existence. When a kiss is offered instead of taken, it signals that connection matters more than conquest. The body understands this difference immediately. One creates safety. The other creates tension that closes rather than opens. An invitation begins long before lips meet. It appears in softened eye contact that asks rather than claims. In a pause that lingers without impatience. In the way space is slowly reduced, leaving room for her to respond, to lean in or remain where she is. When you move just close enough and then stop, you are not withdrawing, you are allowing her desire to speak. That moment, that stillness, is where attraction decides whether it wants to move forward. Intrusion ignores this moment. It assumes access rather than earning permission. Even subtle impatience can feel intrusive when it bypasses her internal readiness. A woman is deeply attuned to intention. She can feel whether a kiss is about connection or about outcome. When it feels like an outcome, desire often goes quiet. When it feels like a shared unfolding, curiosity deepens. An invited kiss feels collaborative. It is shaped by feedback in real time. The slightest tilt of her head, the way her breathing changes, the way her body stays or shifts away. Responding to these signals communicates trust. It tells her, "I'm paying attention." That attentiveness is erotic because it honors her agency. She doesn't feel rushed toward a moment, she feels included in it. There is also courage in invitation. It requires you to tolerate uncertainty, to accept that she may not step forward. But this willingness to stand in not knowing is what makes the moment clean and honest. Desire that emerges freely is far more powerful than desire extracted through momentum or obligation. And even when the answer is no, the respect lingers. Safety remains intact. Attraction may even deepen over time rather than shatter in an instant. When a kiss is invited, it carries emotional resonance. It feels less like an action and more like a sentence finally completed after a long pause. Her body doesn't brace, it relaxes. Her mind doesn't race, it settles. She experiences the kiss not as something happening to her, but as something happening between you. This is why the most irresistible kisses are rarely sudden. They are preceded by emotional attunement, by patience, by the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to rush the moment to feel powerful. An invitation honors timing, consent, and desire all at once, and when those align, the kiss no longer feels like a move, but like a natural response to a connection that has already been mutually agreed upon without words. Chemistry rarely appears because of perfect technique or clever execution. It arises from context, from the emotional climate surrounding two people in a given moment. The same action can feel electrifying in one setting and uncomfortable in another, not because the action changed, but because the meaning around it did. Desire is deeply sensitive to atmosphere. It responds to what feels appropriate, aligned, and emotionally resonant rather than rehearsed or strategic. Context begins with how two people arrived in that moment together. Were they laughing, sharing something personal, feeling understood, or simply enjoying an unspoken ease? These experiences soften internal boundaries. They create a sense of we rather than you and me. When that shared emotional ground exists, attraction doesn't need to be manufactured. It is already present, waiting for expression. A kiss becomes irresistible when it feels like a natural extension of the moment rather than a disruption of it. If the emotional energy is playful, curiosity leads. If the energy is intimate, closeness feels appropriate. Context is about reading that emotional temperature and adjusting accordingly. Desire fades when actions feel disconnected from what came before. When the body does something the emotional tone hasn't yet prepared for, the mind pulls back. Place also matters in subtler ways. Not the physical location alone, but what that place represents emotionally. Privacy versus exposure. Comfort versus tension. Familiarity versus novelty. A setting where a woman feels relaxed allows her nervous system to soften. In that ease, she becomes more receptive to touch, to closeness, to intimacy. In contrast, environments that trigger self-consciousness or alertness often make even gentle gestures feel too forward. Context also includes timing. Not just when you kiss, but when you don't. The restraint to wait, to sense whether the moment has fully ripened, builds tension rather than diminishing it. Anticipation thrives when desire is acknowledged but not rushed. The pause becomes part of the seduction. It gives space for her own wanting to surface. Technique often focuses on what to do. Context focuses on when and why. This shift changes everything. A kiss that emerges from the right context feels effortless because it is supported by what came before it. There is no internal debate, no resistance, no need to analyze. The body recognizes alignment and responds. When people attempt to create attraction through technique alone, they overlook this deeper truth. Desire is not persuaded by precision. It is invited by coherence. When emotional tone, timing, setting, and energy are in harmony, even the slightest gesture carries weight. Even the near kiss can feel intoxicating. Understanding context means staying responsive rather than scripted. It means valuing emotional intelligence over performance. When you let the moment shape the action instead of forcing the action onto the moment, intimacy feels organic. And when intimacy feels organic, a kiss doesn't need to announce itself. It simply arrives as the most natural next step in an unfolding connection that already feels right, familiar, and alive in the shared space between two people. Attraction deepens when the nervous system feels safe enough to soften. Emotional safety is often invisible, yet it is one of the strongest amplifiers of desire. Without it, intimacy remains shallow or guarded. With it, even small gestures carry great intensity. A woman may enjoy attention, charm, or flirtation, but it is emotional safety that allows her to relax into wanting rather than protecting herself from uncertainty. Emotional safety is created when a woman feels she does not have to perform, impress, or manage someone else's expectations. It emerges when she senses that her boundaries will be respected without negotiation. That respect allows desire to rise naturally, because there is no need for vigilance. When safety is present, her body can shift out of defense and into receptivity. This shift is subtle, yet profound. Listening is one of the strongest builders of this safety. Not listening to respond, but listening to understand. When someone feels genuinely heard, something inside them settles. Their words are no longer armor, they become expression. This feeling of being emotionally held creates trust, and trust opens the door to intimacy. Desire often follows trust, not the other way around. Emotional safety also grows when there is consistency between words, behavior, and energy. Mixed signals create unease. Predictability, when paired with warmth, creates calm. This doesn't mean being boring or overly cautious. It means being congruent. When a woman senses that your presence is steady, not volatile or agenda-driven, she can let go of the need to analyze every interaction. There is also safety in allowing her autonomy. When she feels free to move closer or stay where she is without consequence, desire becomes playful rather than pressured. Freedom is erotic because it removes obligation. A kiss, in that context, feels like a choice rather than a response to expectation. Choice strengthens attraction because it affirms agency. Emotional safety is not the absence of tension, it is the absence of threat. There can still be mystery, curiosity, even longing. But underneath it is reassurance. She knows she won't be shamed, rushed, or dismissed for how she feels. That reassurance allows vulnerability to surface, and vulnerability is where desire deepens into something more intoxicating. When emotional safety exists, a kiss carries emotional depth. It doesn't feel risky in a frightening way, but exciting in an enlivening way. Her body leans into the moment rather than bracing for it. She experiences closeness as nourishing rather than depleting. This is why emotional safety doesn't make attraction dull, it makes it sustainable. In the presence of safety, desire has room to expand, to linger, to mature beyond impulse. It becomes grounded yet alive, intimate yet spacious, allowing a kiss to feel not just thrilling in the moment, but meaningful in its resonance long after the lips part and the silence that follows feels warm rather than uncertain. Anticipation is one of the most powerful amplifiers of desire because it transforms longing into an experience that exists before the kiss even occurs. It is not about playing games or withholding affection arbitrarily, it is about cultivating a sense of momentum that feels natural and magnetic. Desire thrives in the space between thought and action, in the tension that builds when connection is acknowledged but not yet consummated. This tension, when handled with awareness, creates a magnetic pull that is far more compelling than immediate fulfillment. The essence of anticipation is patience. It is the ability to notice subtle signals, leaning in, a lingering gaze, a brush of the hand, and allow them to evolve into something more without rushing the outcome. In these pauses, desire has the chance to deepen. The mind and body both begin to tune into possibilities, imagining what it would feel like, savoring the unspoken permission that hovers just beneath the surface. This is what makes the eventual kiss feel inevitable rather than forced, an organic conclusion to a conversation that has been taking place in both presence and energy. Anticipation also engages the imagination, which is a deeply erotic space. When a woman can imagine the kiss before it happens, the mind begins to produce sensations that heighten sensitivity, creating a richer, more layered experience when contact is finally made. This is why rushing a kiss often diminishes its power. There has been no space for the mind to participate, for curiosity and desire to build, for the nervous system to awaken fully. A kiss that comes too quickly can feel abrupt or transactional, whereas one that emerges from anticipation feels inevitable, as though it were the only logical next step in the unfolding of intimacy. Furthermore, anticipation respects emotional pacing. It allows both people to attune to each other's rhythms, noticing when closeness is welcome and when it should be held back. Desire is not merely physical, it is relational. The slow build-up creates a feedback loop, where small gestures, touching the hand, leaning in, sharing a whispered word, become charged with meaning. Each gesture becomes an invitation, a signal that increases longing rather than diminishing it. In this way, anticipation makes the eventual kiss not only pleasurable but profoundly intimate. Anticipation also amplifies confidence. When one is comfortable with the pause, with the not knowing, there is a calm authority in allowing desire to emerge rather than trying to force it. That calm, measured presence communicates to her that this is not about urgency but about attunement. The power of anticipation lies not in manipulation, but in awareness, the ability to create conditions where attraction can flourish organically, where the mind, body, and heart all lean toward the moment together. The beauty of anticipation is that it transforms a simple act, a kiss, into a shared crescendo. Each glance, each touch, each pause builds a rhythm that makes the eventual meeting of lips feel almost inevitable. It is the dance before the step, the tension before release, and when anticipation is fully embraced, desire reaches a height that no technique alone could ever achieve, leaving the kiss charged with both meaning and memory, long before it ever arrives.